At exactly 3 a.m., a man boarded the downtown 6 train at Bleecker Street. By 3:20, he was dead, his ticket stub slit down the middle with a symbol no cop could explain. Welcome to New York's darkest secret, the subway slasher files. New York City never sleeps, but maybe it should have. It started as an eerie string of seemingly random murders. 5 victims, 5 different subway lines. But something didn't add up. No witnesses, no obvious connections. Each victim found in the last car of the train, eyes wide open, staring at the emptiness beyond the windows. The only clue? A strange, almost ritualistic mark carved into the MetroCard ticket stubs of the deceased. The case was cold. No one could make sense of it until Detective Luis Alvarez got involved. A Bronx native with a past darker than the subway tunnels he patrolled. Alvarez had seen it all: wars, blood, broken bodies, but nothing like this. He was a man haunted by ghosts, his own personal demons, chasing shadows in the city's underbelly. Riding the late-night trains was his way of outrunning them. But this case? This one was different. The first victim was discovered at 2nd Avenue on the F train. His body slumped against the window. No blood, no wounds, just the MetroCard, its corner slashed and branded with an unmistakable symbol half of a broken pentagon. Alvarez felt the chill down his spine. He'd seen that mark before. Not just the symbol, but the pattern. The murders continued, each more baffling than the last. But Alvarez started to notice something no one else had. A pattern. A twisted one. A map of the city, etched in blood and stone. The killer wasn't choosing victims at random. The slasher was hunting, specifically. Every victim rode alone. Every victim boarded late at night. And always, always, in the last car. Then came Jada Lynn, an MTA operator with an unshakable instinct. Jada ran the graveyard shift on the N line. It was on her watch that the pattern began to unravel. She'd been seeing a man, a tall figure in a hooded jacket, never riding with anyone else. Every night, never getting off, just watching. There was something off about him, something that made her skin crawl. One night, she made a note in the log. The man never exits. And the night before each murder, I swear he's been on my train. At first, no one listened. Then the murders kept happening, and the strange note became the clue no one could ignore. Alvarez, skeptical but desperate for leads, started riding the subway at night, obsessively tracing the killer's every move. It wasn't long before he saw him too. The ghost. A mano. Something other than a man was riding those trains. Tall, pale, hollow-eyed, his face hidden under a hood. He didn't look at anyone, not even the people he passed. He only watched the tracks. Alvarez approached him one night, gun drawn, heart pounding. The train screeched to a halt. The figure was gone, vanished. But what remained? A MetroCard, split in 2. And this time, the name etched into the back wasn't a victim's. It was Alvarez's name. Alvarez was no longer just chasing a killer. He was chasing something personal, something that reached into his past. In 1997, a boy named Samuel Reeves disappeared from Alvarez's foster home. No one knew where he'd gone. The case was closed. Files erased. People hushed. But there was always one thing that haunted Alvarez. A crude symbol, scratched into the wall of his old bedroom. The same symbol he was seeing in these murders. Alvarez dug deeper into his own past, and the threads of the case began to tangle with things he never wanted to confront. The killer was no stranger. The ghost wasn't just a murderer. He was a messenger. Days turned to weeks. Alvarez and Jada followed the trail to the forgotten depths of the subway system, a place no one spoke of. The City Hall Station, an abandoned station, silent and empty. Its walls held secrets. It was here, in the cold, damp shadows beneath the streets, that the past and present collided. The deeper they went, the more they began to understand. The killings were never random. They were part of a ritual, one that had been set in motion long before the first victim boarded that train. Each murder, each ticket stub with that strange mark, was part of a larger plan. And it was Alvarez's past this failure to protect a boy who had vanished that had brought them to this moment. The killer had come for revenge, but what he was after was something far more terrifying. Alvarez's soul, the ghost, was tied to the subway itself, to the old, forgotten tunnels beneath the city. It was a figure born of darkness and anger, someone who had suffered long ago and had returned for justice. And it was clear now, the ghost had been waiting for Alvarez all along. Then, on the night of the final confrontation, Alvarez stood face to face with the ghost in the heart of the abandoned station, the flickering lights casting long, stretching shadows across the tracks. "You've been running, detective." The ghost's voice was low, almost a whisper. "But you can't outrun your past." The killer stepped forward, revealing his face. It was Samuel Reeves. But it wasn't just Samuel. His features had twisted, contorted by years of rage and betrayal. He was no longer the child Alvarez had failed to protect. He was something else. A figure from the darkness of Alvarez's conscience, come to claim what was owed. Alvarez pulled his gun, hands shaking. No. This can't be real. "I was never gone, detective." Samuel's voice was filled with both sorrow and rage. "You buried me, and now I'm here to bury you." With a flash of steel, Samuel lunged. The shot rang out, but it wasn't enough. Alvarez staggered back, the lights dimming. The train bell rang from somewhere far off, and in that instant, Alvarez realized the past wasn't just something to be buried. It was something that would always be chasing him. But when he opened his eyes again, the station was empty. The lights flickered, then went out, and all that remained was the sound of a subway train, far below, approaching. The last thing Alvarez saw was the symbol mark carved into the wall of the City Hall station, half of a broken pentagon. The subway still runs beneath the streets of New York, and somewhere, the ghost is waiting. So, the next time you ride the subway late at night, alone, listen closely. If the last car is empty and the lights flicker, maybe it's time to check your ticket stub, because the ghost is never far behind. The moment Camille Rourke's body hit the floor of her Upper East Side penthouse, the world's wealthiest made one thing crystal clear: money wasn't the only thing they'd kill for. In the glittering chaos of New York City, where power and privilege rule, Camille Rourke was untouchable, so everyone thought. Widowed at a young age, she inherited a fortune that many envied, but it wasn't just her wealth that made her a force to be reckoned with. Camille was a philanthropist, a beacon of grace, and the queen of the city's elite social circles. Yet, behind her curated smile and lavish galas, Camille harbored a dark truth. Her life was entwined in a web of secrets that could destroy her and those closest to her. On a cold November morning, Camille's body was discovered sprawled at the foot of her penthouse stairs. The police called it an accident, a tragic fall, but there was one man who refused to accept the easy explanation. Agent Tyrell Monroe, a seasoned FBI investigator with a past that haunted him. Monroe had spent years investigating Wall Street's dirty deals, but this case wasn't just about money, it was about murder. Camille Rourke had been a symbol of New York's glittering elite. But as Monroe sifted through her estate and finances, he unearthed something far more sinister. A secret transaction. A single wire transfer from a shadowy hedge fund, one that no one had ever noticed. And that single transaction was just the beginning. Monroe's gut told him this wasn't an accident. His investigation led him to a tangled mess of insider trading, money laundering, and a dangerous conspiracy. Every lead Monroe chased only deepened the mystery, until one name began to surface again and again: Nico Moretti. Moretti was Camille's former lover, charismatic, ambitious, and always a few steps ahead of everyone else. On the surface, he was a tech genius with a reputation for cutting-edge innovations, but behind that polished exterior, he was hiding something darker. It wasn't just the financial ties between Nico and Camille that disturbed Monroe. It was the way Nico moved through the world, always one step ahead, never truly caught. As Monroe dug deeper, he uncovered Nico's involvement in Camille's most controversial charity events that, on the surface, seemed innocent enough. But in reality, they were a front for a massive money laundering scheme that had funneled millions into Moretti's tech ventures. The more Monroe uncovered, the more he realized Nico wasn't just a player in this story. He might be the one pulling the strings. The plot thickened when Monroe uncovered something even more chilling. Nico's alibi for the night of Camille's death was flimsy at best. Security footage from the penthouse had mysteriously gone dark that night, but phone records and travel logs revealed something shocking. Nico had been there hours before Camille's death. As Monroe's investigation spiraled deeper into New York's underworld, he started to uncover even more shocking secrets. It wasn't just a crime of passion, it was a carefully planned murder, orchestrated to look like an accident. And just when Monroe thought he had uncovered the heart of the conspiracy, he stumbled upon a revelation that would shatter everything he thought he knew. Camille's brother, the man she had thought dead for years, was alive. He had been presumed dead after a horrific car accident over a decade ago. But in reality, he had faked his death, assuming a new identity to operate from the shadows. He was the mastermind behind the hedge fund's corrupt dealings and had been manipulating Camille for years. All this time, he had been watching, waiting for the moment when he could eliminate her as the one person who threatened to expose everything. As Monroe connected the final pieces of the puzzle, the conspiracy revealed itself in its full, horrifying scope. Camille's brother, who had always been in the background, had orchestrated a series of tragic events to put himself in a position of power, using the very woman he once called family as a pawn in his game. But Camille, aware of the darkness closing in on her, had spent her last days preparing for this very moment. In the days leading up to her death, she had left a series of cryptic clues, a trail of breadcrumbs meant to expose the truth about her brother, Nico, and the men who had used her for their own gain. Her final act wasn't one of desperation, it was one of defiance. Monroe now found himself in a race against time, with his own life on the line. As he pieced together Camille's final messages, he realized she hadn't been a victim, she had been a fighter, and she had died with the knowledge that exposing the truth would bring everything crashing down. Her death wasn't the end, it was the spark that would ignite the ultimate downfall of everyone involved. The final showdown came at a lavish charity gala event that was supposed to celebrate the city's wealthiest and most influential. Instead, it would be the setting for a confrontation that would change everything. Monroe stood face to face with Camille's brother, a man who had spent years hiding in plain sight, controlling everything from the shadows. In a shocking twist, Camille's brother confessed that he had orchestrated her murder not because she was a threat, but because she had known the truth about him and had planned to destroy everything he had worked for. As Monroe confronted him, the dark reality of the conspiracy unraveled in front of him. Camille's death had been a calculated move, set in motion long before that fateful night. And yet, despite the betrayal, despite the darkness, Camille had left behind the key to exposing it all. Her death was her final gift to those who still believed in justice. In a world where money, power, and corruption dictate the rules, even the richest widow can't escape the consequences of her past. But Camille Rourke's final act wasn't just about survival, it was about vengeance. What if I told you there's a place in New York City where people vanish without a trace and no one even cares to look? A place where the past refuses to let go, where memories are stolen, lives erased, and something darker than any urban legend haunts the shadows. It's 2 a.m. when 17-year-old Lucy Harris steps off the tram and disappears into the night. She'd been walking on Roosevelt Island, the one place in New York City that still holds secrets buried beneath the shadows of the abandoned hospitals and forgotten tunnels. The police chalk it up to another runaway, another missing teen lost to the city's endless tide of faces. But Ava Delgado, an investigative podcaster with a knack for sniffing out hidden truths, isn't so sure. There's something wrong, something eerie about Lucy's disappearance. Something familiar. Ava's obsession with the case takes her deep into the island's history, into the abandoned hospitals where the city once locked away its forgotten souls. It was here, nearly a century ago, that Roosevelt Island was known for its asylum, a place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. The island's own darkness is part of its legacy. Captain Elijah Brooks had closed the case years ago. Too many unexplained disappearances to count. But something in Ava's investigation catches his eye: new evidence that suggests Lucy's vanishing isn't an isolated incident. Reluctantly, Brooks reopens the file. He's been avoiding the island for years, because it's not just the people who vanish there, it's the memories. The island has a way of erasing them. People forget. There's an old saying around here. Roosevelt Island doesn't just take people, it takes their history too. But you're not gonna find what's missing. Trust me. Ava's investigation leads her deeper into the island's decaying heart, where she uncovers a chilling connection to an underground society known only as the Archivist. The Archivist is no myth, no ghost story whispered by locals to scare tourists. He's real, a figure who collects memories, a curator of lost lives. The missing aren't dead, they've been erased from history, their existence wiped clean. He keeps their artifacts, their personal items, as trophies in his twisted collection. As Ava digs into his past, she realizes he's not just an old man hiding in the shadows. She's been watching the island for decades, and now he's watching her. The Archivist's message is clear. I collect what others forget. The island's history isn't just full of secrets, it's a living, breathing entity. There were rumors of occult experiments in the asylum's early days, rituals performed on the missing, sacrifices to something ancient. The Archivist, it seems, is the keeper of that darkness. Eliza's journal tells a story of a forbidden ritual, one that sought to erase people from history entirely. But Eliza wasn't the only one who knew about it. Captain Brooks knew too, and he's kept that secret buried for decades. You don't know what you're dealing with. The island doesn't forget, and neither does the Archivist. If you keep pushing, if you dig too deep, you'll be next. Your name will be wiped from existence. I already erased Lucy. You erased all of them, but you can't erase me. Ava descends into the bowels of the island's hidden tunnels, following the cryptic clues left by the Archivist, knowing that once she reaches the heart of it all, she'll have to confront the truth and the terror waiting there. What Ava finds in the darkness beneath Roosevelt Island is worse than she ever could have imagined. An underground chamber filled with the remains of people who were erased not by death, but by memory. Their bodies were preserved, their souls lost to the island. And there, in the center of it all, stands the Archivist. The Archivist doesn't just collect the missing, he becomes them. And as Ava stands there, realizing that she is the next to be forgotten, the only thing left for her to do is to make her own memory last. Some places are forgotten, some people are erased, and Roosevelt Island, it remembers.
Like, subscribe, and comment.